What's powerful to me is that people weren't going behind your idea because there were such good real estate opportunities that they could invest in. You had to go out and actually sell memberships before there was anything. And it reminds me of like Steve Jobs. Like he sold the Next box. I think it's called Next. There was the black box. It wasn't a real thing. He sold the idea of it.
Right.
And then he went to Apple again later. So there's credit there. It's like you were able to show the value in something before it existed, the pre-membership.
Well, that's the thing is, which is so funny is there's so many different layers of opening this business and timing's everything.
Yeah.
And that all played out like over a certain period of time. It was all super, a lot of negativity and a lot of bad things happened at that time. And we can get into that. But I mean, at first it was, okay, I found the space, I'm going to do this. And then I started to learn about the other side, which was, all right, you got to get an architect to build this out, right? Then you've got to get, the loans and all this stuff. And the big thing I didn't recognize was there's one thing buying real estate and be able to pro forma that and having that, something for the bank to also collateralize compared to a business where you're leasing the space. I didn't buy it because no one was selling it for a multiple that made any sense. Yeah. But leasing it made sense. And so now you go in front where I go to bankers that used to just lend me money because I could turn a profit in a commercial real estate standpoint. And now I go in front of them with a business idea, which made total sense to me, was a home run in my mind, had a great business plan, yet no collateral. I had zero experience in it, but I'm like, hey, I'm successful in this. Why does that not equate to this? And the bankers just laughed at me. And they're just like, Ken, if you were Walt Disney and brought a gym to us, we wouldn't lend you any money. And I was like, whoa, that hit me real hard. So I was like, wait a second, I've got some collateral at home. I've got this other stuff. I've been successful. Why does that not equate to the business? And they knew a lot more than I knew that I was walking into. So it just kind of hit me. And I was like, whoa, I have my work really cut out for me now. I thought I could just get the money right away. I was like, listen, here's a great plan. I got the place. I already sold 300 members. Lend me my money. And they were all like, no.
So what got you mentally through that to wake up and persist? Most people quit. I think it's 95% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, and that keeps going down from there.
Well, I would say, my being naive about getting lending for this, pretty much, I was doing things kind of a little backwards. Especially not having a background in the gym business, not knowing that the gym business was not a very lendable product at that time, that I invested a lot of my money in. Because a lot of this stuff was already way down the road before I got told no by a bank, because I didn't think that was going to even be a problem. I'm like, listen, I invested $400,000 into this thing. I've got this great lease in a growing area, this business plan, how I'm going to monetize it, and everything like that. So all of a sudden, I need the real money to come in because, with the architect, they came in and doubled what I told them my budget was. So now I'm paying. Take it back, as at that time was the peak of the real estate boom. I didn't get 3 months rent. I was paying $20,000 a month right away on something that needed to be built out in 4 months, and I budgeted $80,000 for it. And now we're 4 months past, and I haven't been able to get my architect to give me a number that even made sense. Wow. So that's blown out of the budget. And now I'm like, okay, this guy I can't use, get rid of him. Now I got to bring on somebody else, and you're right down the road. So I couldn't even go get my lending because I couldn't get a construction number that made sense. So I'm doing that. I'm fronting this money to keep it moving along.
Your skin in the game.
All my skin in the game. So by the time they said no, it really, knowing where it went further, I didn't know that. If I would have gotten out, I would have lost some pretty good money, but I wouldn't have lost as much. But I did have an opportunity to look at the path and say, hey, get out of this, go back down this road, just take this as a really big learning experience. which wouldn't have tasted very well. It would have been a very bitter pill to swallow. But I had employees. I had an idea that I spent a lot of time and I still believed in. I couldn't shake that.
It's a belief.
Yeah, it was a firm belief that this really could work, and this is something that people would want. Just besides the healthy side, again, the social side, I wanted to kind of encapsulate in here. I believed it could really take off, so I stuck with it. And
you didn't give up.
I didn't. I didn't. I could have, but like I said, I was down the road where that didn't look good, and going forward didn't look good. And I was kind of like, what do I do? And I said, you know what? I really believe in this thing. I'm going to keep going forward. All right. And that's when, we finally built it out. I finally got someone in. We built it out together. I got a loan after like 15 no's, got a $1.25 million SBA loan.
So you finished the build out.
I did.
You got the loan.
Yep. 8 months delayed. Finally got the loan. Probably the third time I was through Wachovia Bank. I remember sitting at my dining room table being like, this is it. If they say no, I am screwed. I've lost $500,000, all my savings, everything. I'm flat broke. And they called me and I just shaking. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, listen, we've got good news and bad news. I go, well, what's the bad news? He goes, we still don't like gyms. I go, okay. So what could be the good news at this point? They're like, we're going to invest in you. And I was like, holy crap. And they signed over $1.25 million based off of my business plan, who I was. They looked at me, not the business, which is very odd. Wow. So they saw success what I did in other places, my passion for it, my business plan seemed to make sense. Even though it wasn't one of their top things to lend to, they said, listen, we're going to invest in you. So I was able to get that money. And that was huge to get me to opening and starting to move this thing in the right direction.